14th century floor levels, and in 1990 and 1991 further excavation took place in its courtyard area. Meanwhile, the timber framing and the roof structures of the building were examined timber by timber. This research provided the basis for the reconstruction of the building you see today, the original timbers being preserved wherever possible and decayed and missing timbers replaced. The excavations showed that the property had undergone multiple alterations over the years, even in the medieval period. What you see today shows it how it was towards the end of the medieval period. By then, it had a great hall, large ground floor room open to the roof, used for formal meals, and that had a floor of green and yellow glazed tiles and a central open hearth. At one end was the screens passage, used by servants to get to the hall from the food preparation areas beyond. The screens passage has now become, who knows how, a public right-of-way. Above the food preparation areas was a parlour, almost completely preserved in its medieval state. At right angles to the hall was a long two-storey building, the chamber range, to which access could be gained both at ground floor, where you now come in, and at the first floor up an external staircase. This contained storage and workrooms on the ground floor, and chambers used as day rooms and for sleeping on the first floor, and in some areas on a second floor. As part of the research on the building, samples of the surviving timbers were taken for dendrochronological analysis, better known as tree ring dating. This showed that the timbers in the chamber range had been cut down about 1360 or 1361. That, therefore, is the earliest part of the building. Timbers in the hall range were later, some dating from about the 1430s, and some were later still, indicating alterations or reconstruction about 1515. This information was then compared with the recorded history of the building. Most of this had never been published, though it still existed in the City of York's archives, mostly in the form of medieval manuscripts. The earliest reference to the building comes from 1361, when it's referred to as the Hospitium of the Priors of Nostell, meaning the hospital belonging to Nostell Priory near Wakefield. The canons of the priory were sometimes required to assist at important ceremonies and meetings at York Minster, so were leased a strip of Minster-owned land off Stonegate on which to build a mansion. The canon's hostel was therefore the chamber range of this property. It was divided by its timber frame into 6 units or bays. Above the ground floor room in the 2 central bays was the prior's great chamber, 2 stories high, with an impressive crown-post roof set on huge arch braces. Important guests were conducted directly to this room via the external staircase. The chamber range probably had a counterpart on the opposite side of the courtyard, with the 2 linked by a great hall, giving the building a U-shaped floor plan, but nothing more of the 14th century building has survived above ground. In 1438, the canons of Nostell complained of extreme poverty and may have resorted to letting their townhouse out as a source of income. Certainly, by 1466 they were doing that, leasing their property to the goldsmith William Nozzle, one of York's leading citizens of the time, who 2 years later would be elected Lord Mayor. The rebuilding of the hall probably coincided with this period in its history, and some wealthy secular tenant adapted the prior's house to become a fashionable city centre dwelling. The present Great Hall, the buttery, the pantry and the chamber all came into being at this time. The new Great Hall, with its canopied alcove for a high table, cut into some of the main structural timbers of the older chamber range, making it unsound, and meaning that remedial work had to be done during the restoration some 500 years after the original damage had been done. All of Nostell Priory's property was confiscated in 1540 during the dissolution of the monasteries. Barley Hall's history in the period up to and following the dissolution is unclear, but it acquired its brick extension and a pair of fireplaces and fine triple windows sometime in the late 15th or early 16th centuries. York Archaeological Trust began its restoration in 1990 with the intention of creating a new visitor attraction in York, just as it had done 6 years earlier with the York Viking Centre. The idea was to let visitors experience what it was like to step into one of York's medieval townhouses. Every effort was made to use, in the reconstruction, the same techniques and materials that had been used when the building was first built. The 15th century hall range survived in relatively good condition and was repaired in situ. A team of local specialists reproduced the floor tiles and the roof tiles based on medieval examples from the site, and they replaced them. The traditional technique of pegging the roof tiles over split oak laths was used, and you can see that well in the parlour. The complex structure of the chamber range was disassembled and repaired off-site. Many of its timbers were decayed or damaged, but all reusable sections were kept, and they were scarf-jointed onto new wood where necessary. Once repaired, the timbers were kept damp to prevent drying out before being returned to York in 1992. The long beams then had to be manoeuvred from Stonegate along the narrow coffee yard and reassembled in their original position by crane, the one concession to modern methods. It was decided that the house should be decorated and furnished to show how it might have looked in 1483 when William Snottle and his family were living there. Specialist crafters were engaged to create the replica furniture, wall hangings, tableware and other features and fittings. Hearth in the Great Hall was recreated using a recycled medieval original from a rescue dig near Rawcliffe near York. The fenestrals, or window covers, in the pantry were made in the traditional way, from linen treated with alum, hot sheep's fat and rosin to make them translucent and weatherproof. A beautiful horn window was also installed in the gallery. Textiles in the Great Hall were hand-woven on traditional looms and hand-sewn by local volunteers. To ensure traditional methods were used, textiles were dyed with natural dyes such as weld and woad and madder. Named in honour of Professor Maurice Barley, founding chairman of York Archaeological Trust, Barley Hall finally opened to the public in 1993. It now welcomes tens of thousands of visitors annually who come to enjoy its unique atmosphere and to glimpse aspects of the household and lifestyle of a wealthy York citizen of the late 15th century.